picture, waking up to headlines forecasting the end of the world. Chilling, isn't it? Welcome to Prophecies Unveiled, where today we're diving into the tempestuous seas of Armageddon prophecies and why they've haunted humanity for centuries. Now, you might be asking, are these predictions just doom-mongering folklore, or do they hold deeper meaning? We'll tackle apocalyptic scriptures, decode the enigmatic book of Revelation, and parse historical waves of doomsday panic. In this three-act journey, we'll map their shadowy origins, confront the psychological grip of prophecy, and explore the science behind mass fears. If you've ever heard the terms eschatology, the study of end times or millenarianism, the belief in transformative global upheaval, think of eschatology as the script and millenarianism as the blockbuster movie people keep waiting for. Buckle up as we separate myth from message and discover why Armageddon still captures our collective imagination. Let me transport you back to ancient Israel, to a dusty plain called Megiddo. This battlefield is where the term Armageddon, literally hill of Megiddo, finds its roots. But what sparked the association with final battles and cosmic showdowns? Scripture, specifically the apocalyptic text of Revelation 16, painted Megiddo as ground zero for the last cataclysmic conflict. Now, you might wonder, did ancient people really believe the world would end here? Well, in their worldview, omens and prophecy weren't sidebars, they were front-page news. Prophecies acted like early warning systems, much like seismographs for spiritual earthquakes. And just as the concept of apocalypse means unveiling, these stories reveal their deepest hopes and fears. Now, let's crack open the most infamous source, the book of Revelation. Packed with cryptic symbols, beasts with 7 heads, rivers of fire, horsemen, it reads, like a hallucinatory blockbuster. But what's really going on here? Revelation is apocalyptic literature, a genre using dense metaphor to cloak its messages from persecutors. Imagine code switching, not between languages, but between images, so only insiders get the true meaning. The technical term here is exegesis, the process of interpreting scripture, and hermeneutics, the art of decoding those interpretations across cultures and eras. So next time you hear a wild prophecy, ask, are we reading a warning, a hope, or a hidden message? Ever notice how end-of-the-world predictions just never go out of style? From the Y2K bug to 2012's Mayan apocalypse, humanity's got a flair for forecasting disaster. Why is that? It comes down to a psychological phenomenon called patternicity, our tendency to see meaningful patterns in random data. And let's not forget confirmation bias, the mental trickster that makes us notice more prophecies when we're already anxious. Now, you might be thinking, but if they keep failing, why do we keep believing? Because every generation thinks their crisis is unique, their end is imminent. Armageddon, it turns out, isn't just about endings, it's about the hope for new beginnings after chaos. Let's jump to medieval Europe, where apocalyptic prophecy wasn't just dinner table talk, it was a social force. Plagues, war, comets, all seen as divine omens. The technical term millenarian movements described waves of people convinced the millennium, the 1,000-year reign, was about to dawn. Think of it like viral memes. An idea spreads, morphs, and suddenly thousands believe the end is nigh. But here's the twist. These beliefs often inspired reform, charity, and even revolutions. Armageddon wasn't just fear, it was a catalyst. Imagine being a peasant, hearing a fiery preacher say, the world will end, but those who act with compassion will be saved. Wouldn't you change how you live just in case? Fast forward to the 20th century, Armageddon prophecies got a modern makeover. Think nuclear war, Cold War anxieties, and cults predicting calendar-based doom. Two technical terms here: existential risk, threats to humanity's survival, and eschatological communities groups living as if the world could end tomorrow. Remember the Heaven's Gate cult or the mass panic around the year 2000? Both show how technology and prophecy can fuse into viral terror. Now, you might say, we're too rational for that now. Are we? Or do we just wear new masks for old fears? Each era picks its own apocalypse. The weapons change, but the stories stay eerily familiar. Here's a twist. Science and prophecy may sound like arch rivals, but both warn of disaster. The difference? Evidence. Scientists talk about existential threats, asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes as real data-driven risks. Prophets, they describe divine judgment, a cosmic reset triggered by moral failure. Now, what if I told you both use scenario planning, imagining worst-case outcomes to inspire action? Think of scenario planning as rehearsing a fire drill, while prophecy is more like reading a warning label that's open to interpretation. So, is prophecy irrational? Maybe not. It's a cultural tool for coping with uncertainty, even if the math's fuzzy. Let's get personal. Why do apocalyptic prophecies feel so real, even when history keeps proving them wrong? It's all about catastrophic cognition, our brain's bias toward expecting the worst-case scenario. Throw in future shock, the stress of too much rapid change, and you've got a recipe for doomsday thinking. When the world feels unstable, prophecy gives us a script, a sense of control, even if it's an illusion. Now you might ask, does that make us gullible? Not at all. It makes us human. We crave stories that help us make sense of chaos. And that's why Armageddon prophecies keep coming back, because fear and the hope of survival never go out of style. Ever noticed how apocalyptic themes dominate pop culture? From Armageddon the movie to End of the World pop songs, we're hooked on destruction. Two technical terms: narrative tropes, recurring story patterns, and cultural semiotics, the study of symbols in pop culture. Both drive our obsession with the big finale. When you watch a city explode in a blockbuster or hear lyrics about the world ending, you're tapping into a tradition as old as storytelling itself. Why do we love it? Because it's thrilling. It lets us experience terror safely and imagine what we do when everything falls apart. So, next time you enjoy a cinematic apocalypse, remember, it's just another chapter in humanity's long love affair with the end of days. In the 21st century, our doomsday scenarios have gone digital. Now the threats are AI run amok in lab-grown pandemics. We call these technological singularity, the point where machines outsmart us, and biological existential risk, engineered viruses that could spiral out of control. Now, you might be thinking, are these just sci-fi fears? Or are we really edging closer to the brink? Futurists argue we're living through a new era, one where the tools we create could either save us or spell our end. It's a modern echo of ancient prophecy. Only the angels and demons have Wi-Fi and CRISPR gene editing kits. Let's talk fallout. What actually happens when a much-hyped Armageddon prophecy fizzles out? Sometimes believers experience cognitive dissonance, the mental struggle to reconcile faith with reality. Other times we see group adaptation changing the prophecy's meaning to fit the fact. Let me tell you a story. After the failed 1844 Great Disappointment, many followers reinterpreted the date as a spiritual, not literal event. The prophecy didn't die, it just evolved. Now you might ask, isn't that just moving the goalposts? Yes, and it shows how powerful these narratives can be, reshaping themselves to survive. Failed prophecies may look like defeat, but often they trigger new waves of belief and adaptation. With the internet, prophecies travel faster than ever. An obscure prediction in one country can spark panic across the globe overnight. The terms here are information cascade, rapid spread of beliefs online, and echo chambers, digital spaces where only similar views are amplified. Now, you might be thinking, isn't global connection making us smarter about these things? Ironically, it can do the opposite, fueling rapid, uncritical belief. A meme about apocalypse can trigger real-world consequences, from financial panics to mass migrations. Globalization transforms Armageddon prophecies into viral phenomena, sometimes strengthening, sometimes distorting their original message. Here's a fresh lens. What if Armageddon prophecies aren't really about destruction but transformation? The technical terms are meta-narrative, a story that explains other stories, and apocatastasis, the idea that catastrophe ultimately leads to renewal. Let me tell you a story. After World War II, many believed the atomic bomb would be the final word, but instead, it sparked global cooperation and peace treaties. Now, you might ask, isn't that just wishful thinking? Maybe. But it shows our need to find meaning after crisis. Perhaps Armageddon isn't an ending, but the threshold to a new chapter, one only humanity can write. So, what can we take away from our journey through Armageddon prophecies? First, these stories reveal the power of narrative, how we shape chaos into meaning. Second, prophecy is never just about fear, it's about hope. The belief that after darkness, light is possible. Third, the language of apocalypse adapts, reflecting each era's anxieties and dreams. Here's your concrete next step. Next time you hear a doomsday prediction, pause, ask, what's the story behind the story? What's this really saying about us? Looking ahead, our next episode will dive deeper into one modern prophecy that's sweeping the globe. Can it teach us to be wiser or just more afraid? If you've enjoyed today's exploration, share this episode, and remember, sometimes the end is just the beginning of understanding.